The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has admitted that the government's failed to control the UK's borders.
Hardly surprised she said that. Speaking to the Home Affairs Select Committee, she also blamed illegal migrants and people smugglers for the recent issues at Kent's Manston Processing Centre.
Well, it comes as the Home Office prepares to publish the country's immigration statistics later today.
Joining us now is the political commentator, Peter Spencer.
Good morning to you, Peter. Look, give us an overview, an assessment, if you will, of how the Home Secretary did yesterday, because she seemed under pressure at times and made some admissions that perhaps, you know, the Home Office wouldn't have wanted her to make.
Assessment of her performance, I would say absolutely appalling and indeed quite staggering. She gave the impression she didn't really know what's happening, what should be happening, or indeed even the legal backdrop to what the Home Office is supposed to be doing. I mean, it was an extraordinary performance. I mean, that was quite apart from admitting that they'd lost control of the borders. Now, the Home Office is a very broad brief, okay, but you would think, given that migration is one of Suella Braverman's big beefs, that she would at least have mugged up on that particular topic, but it appeared not. As for admitting that they'd lost control of migration, well, that's a statement of the obvious. That said, it's worth remembering that only this week the CBI were begging both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, who many see as the Prime Minister in waiting, to allow more migration to fill huge gaps in the labour market.
Peter, she came under more pressure, arguably, from her own side, from Tory MPs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because there is the problem that if you're not going to leave people in detention centres, which of course you can't, then you have to put them in hotels, and the question is where. And of course you get a great deal of kickback because MPs very often do not particularly want a large number of migrants in hotels in their constituency. And of course, this whole NIMBY problem feeds into another problem which the government is currently facing, which is there was a threatened rebellion of around 50 Tory MPs about the idea of building more homes in the parts of the countryside where, again, local MPs don't want them. It has to be said that the Conservative Party currently is in extremely bad mood.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, that's on the front of the eye this morning that, you know, Rishi Sunak already this early on in his premiership facing a bit of a rebellion on this particular issue. But yesterday we heard about successful, popular Conservative MPs announcing that they're going to stand down at the next election. We've got this rebellion, as Andrew's pointing out there, a bit of blue on blue during that Home Affairs Select Committee meeting yesterday with the questioning going on. Is the Tory party ungovernable now?
It is certainly, well, I mean, face it, we've had 3 Conservative prime ministers in what feels like about a nanosecond, and they obviously are in a very, very discordant state. And of course, against that backdrop, there is the fact of the opinion polls showing a huge lead for the Labour Party, and it has to be said that Keir Starmer, who has tended to look like he's just swallowed a wasp, with no disrespect to the man, all of a sudden looking rather cheerful and at ease with himself. And of course, yeah, plenty of Tory MPs are sort of reading the rooms and thinking, right, well, that's my career out of the window, so I better start hunting around for something else and pretty jolly soon.
Just back on the immigration, Peter, you didn't get a sense the Home Secretary had a solution, an answer, any idea really of how they're going to get to grips with the fact we've now got 40,000 migrants in hotels up and down the land. They're still pouring across the Channel on an almost daily basis. And when she was asked about legal means by which migrants could come into Britain, she didn't know if there were any and had to consult her officials. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, precisely. That's the whole point. And I come back to the thing that the Home Office itself is arguably somewhat ungovernable. All those years ago, John Reid said that it's not fit for purpose, so they hived off the justice bit, but it is still a monumentally broad brief. But I do come back to the point that Suella Braverman is big on migration, and really she should have had a lot more answers than she actually did. And I mean, as the story was coming through with her various answers, I thought, am I reading this wrong? Can she really be I mean, and it's worth remembering also that she has already had to resign once, or got the heave-ho, whichever it was, over being a bit slapdash about national security. And one wonders how long it'll be before she finds that she gets the heave-ho again for being a bit slapdash about her own job.
Yeah. Look, at 9:30 we get these immigration figures, which will be, I suppose, skewed a little bit this year because we have had this influx of Ukrainians, I think 150,000 or so of them, and 70,000 Hong Kongers, both fleeing persecution and war in those respective countries. But what will prompt the question, won't it, about what is an acceptable level of migration? Where do we want that figure to be? It's been a debate throughout the Conservative administration. It was down the last year on the year before. It will be, as I say, sort of artificially up this year, but that big debate has to be had again, doesn't it?
I suppose it does, yes. And of course, another factor which has lifted the numbers is the fact that we have had, although it's actually pretty parky now and pretty breezy, it has been an unusually clement summer and autumn. As a consequence, larger numbers than normally have managed to make it across the channel in little boats. And there is something very weird about the system that they can claim asylum, but only if they're actually in UK, and there are no legal ways for them to get into the United Kingdom. And so that invites them to get onto little boats to come over here if they're that determined. And I do come back to the point about the Confederation of British Industry saying, look, we do need more people to fill gaps in agriculture, construction, and a host of other hospitality, host of other areas. And both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition have rather ducked that question. But behind all this is the B word, Brexit. When we had free movement of people across Europe, where gaps in the labour market were filled. They no longer are to anything like the same extent, and therefore there is a huge problem. I mean, one of the things that very often does happen is that people who have managed to make it across here find themselves locked in the system, which seems to take forever to sort out, and then they just slip off and work in, say, the construction industry for cash in hand, and their employers are very happy, and the buildings do actually get constructed. So the thing finds its own level anyway. But that doesn't change the fact, again, that there is a severe undercurrent of anxiety, particularly in pinch points like in Kent, where large numbers of people suddenly arrive and put a strain on the schools and the hospitals and all the rest of it. So it is a very inflamed debate, and the shows no sign whatever of going away.
And the Home Secretary yesterday acknowledging in some cases those applications taking 480 days to process. Extraordinary.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. Peter Spence, good to get your analysis this morning. Thank you very much indeed. A political commentator joining us from a very pink Cornwall there. Thank you.